Today is January 13th, 2026, and the ground across China is shaking. Not from tectonic shifts, but from the footsteps of a nation that has finally had enough. From the streets of Changsha to the rural villages of Yunnan, a massive wave of unrest is surging. Delivery workers are rioting, farmers are resisting, and the middle class is watching their life savings evaporate as the real estate bubble bursts. While ordinary citizens drown in debt and unpaid wages, a dark secret remains hidden behind government gates. Corruption has been industrialized. We're talking about cash measured by the ton and treadmills made of solid gold, all while millions struggle to even afford food. Is the Chinese Communist Party losing its grip on power? Today, we pull back the curtain on a regime facing an unprecedented internal collapse and a public that is no longer afraid to fight back. Welcome to China Obscura. The ground is shaking across China. It's not earthquakes, but the heavy footsteps of frustrated citizens who refuse to stay quiet any longer. Delivery drivers are rioting in the streets. Villagers are fighting back against government mistreatment. Students and families are standing up against unfairness. Ordinary people are now risking everything to challenge a corrupt and deeply broken system. Corruption has shifted from simple personal greed into a massive industrial-scale operation. At the same time, regular citizens are drowning in joblessness, debt, starvation, and hopelessness. Ultimately, the fury of the people is growing much faster than the regime can keep it down. China is moving steadily closer to a revolution that could eventually topple the current dictatorship. On December 22nd, what seemed like a minor dispute in Changsha, Yunnan, where security guards told food delivery riders to get off and push their bikes while working, exploded overnight into a massive wave of unrest that went viral on Chinese social media. Beneath the loud horns and flashing lights, there was something much deeper. Widespread resentment among China's lowest-tier workers, who are furious at a system of exploitation they blame on the CCP. In late November, thousands of villagers across parts of Yunnan and Guizhou started protesting against government-enforced cremation rules. These demonstrations, reportedly organized naturally by farmers, lasted for nearly an entire month. Defiant villagers shouted, "If the Communist Party wants to dig up our ancestors' graves, they should start with Xi Jinping's family graves first." It was a raw, public display of the anger currently spreading through the Chinese countryside. On November 24th, online reports spread that a man drove a vehicle into the entrance of the Beihai city government building as a protest. This act shocked the public because of its sheer boldness and the level of growing hostility toward the CCP's harsh rule. On October 31st, significant public unrest also broke out in Qingmai, Hainan province, following a secret government action. A state-owned Chinese company secretly cut down betel nut trees that local farmers needed for their survival. Public fury exploded. Residents swarmed the Hainan Rubber Group's local office, flipping cars and throwing rocks at staff and riot police, while some yelled, "Down with the bandits' nest." Local leaders eventually ran away and gave in, later signing compensation deals. Around Beijing's September 3rd parade, anti-communist slogans appeared on streets all across mainland China. At the same time, live streaming sites and online forums experienced unheard-of levels of satire and symbolic rebellion as users mocked the CCP and bypassed China's massive digital censors. Anger grew even more intense after the mysterious passing of actor Yu Mingguang. Many suspected he was caught in the shadowy power structures of the entertainment industry and abused by red elites, leading to his death. This suspicion sparked more CCP resignations. From late July to early August, the Jiangyu incident in Sichuan, initially started by a bullying case involving a 14-year-old girl, quickly grew into massive protests after CCP officials protected the perpetrators and ignored the public. Armed police were sent in to break up the crowds, leading to violent fights between regular people and the Communist Party. Many protesters were clearly beaten and arrested. A Freedom House report showed that protest activities in China throughout 2025 jumped nearly 50% compared to the year before. Due to heavy censorship, experts believe the actual number of protests is much higher. These movements are no longer limited to rich coastal cities. They are reaching smaller towns and rural areas that have long been managed through force rather than fair leadership. The heart of this growing rebellion is the massive economic failure caused by Xi Jinping's policies. Two specific social groups have been pushed into extreme desperation by these conditions. The first group is the 300 million migrant laborers who built modern China over the last 20 years. As factories shut down and jobs disappear, many go back to their home villages only to find their land has been taken or sold, leaving them broke. This creates a huge population of displaced people, which the CCP sees as a deadly threat. The second group includes jobless college grads, former soldiers, and private business owners. These people, once seen as stabilizing forces, are now becoming sources of unrest. Australian-based expert Yuan Hongbing, who monitors Chinese politics closely, told the Epoch Times that the resistance heading into 2026 has three key traits. First, the scale of unrest is clearly expanding through cities and villages, online and off, covering both economic and social complaints. It can only be described as a rising tide, he noted. Second, the protests reflect a sense of total despair. This wasn't an economic strategy, it was a political survival tactic. Rural China is turning into the regime's weakest point of control, with local finances failing. Entire counties have stopped paying public employees' salaries and cut bonuses. Even the local police are losing their steady paychecks. The enforcement system at the lowest level of government is falling apart fast. The CCP's natural reaction has been to increase their harsh repression across the nation. The Great Firewall keeps growing while regional firewalls cut off provinces and cities. Last year, on July 15th, the National Internet Identity Authentication System went live, turning China's web into a total surveillance net. However, this move shows the regime's increasing panic. Controlling what people think is becoming impossible. Citizens have switched to satire, secret codes, and public jokes. These are clear signs that loyalty to the party's ideology is failing. Coups, military revolts, and popular uprisings might now feed each other. Meanwhile, dangerous cracks are appearing within the system itself. More officials are checking out, choosing to be passive rather than loyal. Reports indicate that even some political police are now avoiding crackdowns to protect themselves from future blame. What's happening in China today is more than just social unrest. It's a failing economic base, shrinking political power, and a public that is no longer afraid of the CCP. The party can keep boosting surveillance, militarizing security, and censoring the public. But history shows that once regular people stop believing in a regime, and once the enforcers start to hesitate, the system's survival is in doubt. Under these conditions, scenarios once thought impossible, like mass uprisings or military mutiny, could start happening. If just one spark hits, it might start a chain reaction strong enough to end CCP rule. Real estate is crashing, and the economy is in a freefall, with no jobs and no pay. Workers across China are rising up, breaking machines and burning factories as the chaos spreads. A strong wave of labor strikes and wage protests is hitting the country, turning into violent fights as desperate workers destroy equipment and construction sites. These protests have broken out in manufacturing, energy, and even the entertainment sector. Workers in many regions are taking to the streets for one simple reason: to get paid for work they already did. Even though the CCP promotes slogans about fixing wage disputes, critics say the regime actually focuses on silencing workers while protecting those who hold the money back. This has caused resentment to reach a breaking point. Based on partial data from Freedom House's China Dissent Monitor, protest cases in the final quarter of 2025 jumped 45% compared to the previous year, with thousands of cases involving violence and arson nationwide. On December 19th in Tibet, workers from a major construction project blocked a highway to demand their unpaid wages. On December 18th, laborers shut down a Juzhou project run by the Hunan Construction Investment Group after months without checks. On December 17th, investors protesting at the Zhejiang Finance Center were removed by police under CCP orders. That same day in Shenzhen, workers surrounded a site after long-term wage delays. In Shanghai, thousands gathered to demand their money back. Their fear was clear. Once the CCP starts criminal trials, assets are frozen and the chance of getting money back hits zero. This shows that the financial crisis is now hurting both workers and former winners of the system. In mid-December, more wage scandals appeared at BOE Beijing, a Guangxi Expressway project, and various China railway branches. These are all firms tied to or managed by CCP-linked state organizations. In November, workers lay on the ground in Guangzhou to protest unpaid salaries at a major financial center. In another incident, wage protesters faced heavily armed special police, the force of the CCP. These events prove that the government cares more about political control than actually paying people back. This wave of unpaid wages has even hit the film industry. One director called the struggle to get paid for his crew exhausting and humiliating. Actor Yu Qingbin admitted he pressured producers daily for pay, only to be told they wouldn't pay even if they had the money. This shows the economic collapse is moving far beyond just manual labor. Even those in CCP-run institutions like doctors, teachers, and bus drivers are now being affected. A dissident shared that a police friend told him their local bureau went unpaid for 3 months and had to sell land to cover the payroll. According to experts, the total debt of the CCP-controlled system has reached 92.6 trillion yuan after years of lockdowns and economic decline. Local reserves are gone, and the CCP is delaying payments, shifting the risk onto businesses and workers. At the center is the collapsed real estate sector, once a third of the GDP. When the bubble popped, money dried up. Projects stopped, and the cash flow to contractors and workers simply disappeared. Local governments, once dependent on land sales, are now in financial ruin and unable to help. The disaster of unpaid labor is a massive wound, showing the wider breakdown of China's economy. In a system where elites prioritize their own survival and image over people's lives, concern for the poor is mostly just talk. Without real reform, migrant workers will keep paying the price, remaining the most helpless victims of this political tragedy. Corruption in China is now industrialized. Embezzlement is measured by the ton, while regular people can barely buy food. Why are so many citizens obsessed with being officials? Surveys show over 75% of Chinese grads want civil service jobs, compared to only 3% in the US. This obsession starts very early in life. One report showed that in a class of 50 kids, 40 had some kind of title, from hygiene monitor to water manager. One child even said he wanted to be the president of the Agricultural Development Bank to follow his family's path. His grandpa and mom were already top bosses there. In a society where people are getting poorer, power looks like an inherited privilege rather than a public service. Actually, corruption among Chinese officials has turned into a massive production chain. While many people struggle to eat, corruption is now measured by weight. 76 years after taking power, the CCP's anti-corruption campaigns happen every year. Yet, the more officials they fire, the more corrupt ones seem to appear. From top leaders to local staff, power and greed are linked. Some cases have revealed insane wealth: golden treadmills, 23 tons of cash, and 2,700 luxury properties. Recent cases show how deep the problem goes. They include Luan of China Life, Wang Bo, who took 449 million yuan in bribes, and several others accused of trading power for money and sex. The list goes on, even including senior figures from the Anti-Corruption Bureau itself. Public anger is intense. While regular folks work hard for every cent, corrupt officials steal millions or billions. Many argue these criminals deserve the death penalty for the harm they cause. As many citizens say, if corrupt officials are used to catch others, how can it ever stop? The numbers are wild. A village chief had 23 tons of cash. A hospital director had hundreds of millions in cash and gold bars. A deputy mayor of a small city stole over 3 billion yuan and owned 1,000 homes. In Liaoning, one official stole hundreds of billions over 20 years. His property deeds alone weighed over 100 kilograms. Even Chinese citizens are shocked. Corruption is no longer counted in millions, but in billions. One famous case is Sun Ying from Hainan. When police searched her homes, they found nothing but dust-covered treadmills. It turns out they were made of solid gold. She only took bribes in gold and melted it into gym equipment. While the CCP claims victory over poverty and corruption, the reality for millions of people is a different story. As long as power is unchecked, public faith will continue to rot. Mikhail Gorbachev once wrote that policy failures enriched the rulers while the public suffered, leading the people to abandon the Soviet Union. When China's citizens fully realize how the CCP has hurt their lives, a similar day of reckoning may be very near.